Okay, good evening, guys, and welcome to our ninth session of our subject IT 313. So we are now on our PM session, and I welcome you all to our session for this evening. So first things first, our objectives are as follows. Number one, discuss research frameworks and its implementation. Number two, value the importance of research and its implementation. And number three, understand research frameworks and its implementation. So for research frameworks, we have clearly illustrated the structure of the research plan and helps the researcher formulate relevant research questions. So the following framework will be consisting of the key concepts of the research project. So that depends upon your title, guys, and of the assumed relationship between these concepts. So for the research framework, it will be for implementing the steps taken through the research, and it is normally used as a guide for researchers so that they are more focused in scope of their studies. So using appropriate framework is essential for a developer because it saves an important time and effort for building an application. And that the purpose of the framework is to allow designers and developers to focus on building a unique feature for their web-based projects rather than reinventing by coding. So guys, for our capstone project, we will have to consider two of the framework or two frameworks. No, number one will be the conceptual framework, and number two is the theoretical framework. So for conceptual framework, it is an analytical tool with several variations and contexts, no? But it can be applied in different categories of work where an overall picture is needed. So please listen to this, guys, because in our activity, you are required to create a conceptual framework. So it is used to make conceptual distinction and organize ideas, no? And if you have a strong conceptual framework, you can capture something real, and to do this in a way that is easy to remember and apply. So conceptual frameworks are particularly useful as organizing devices in empirical research, but take note that we are conducting a developmental technological type of research. And one set of scholars has applied the notion of conceptual framework to be deductive empirical research at the micro or individual study level. So several types of conceptual framework have been identified and lined up with the research purpose in the following ways. So we have number one, working hypothesis, no? So for working hypothesis, it is said to be an exploration or exploratory research. Number two are pillar questions. So pillar questions are also under exploration or exploratory research. Number three are descriptive categories, no? So it means we have to configure description or descriptive research. Likewise, guys, we are going to conduct it using statistical data. Number four, practical idea type or ang ginatawag na gauging. So mainly, guys, this is for analysis. For number five naman, we have the models of operations research, and it is said to be that the contributing factor is decision making. For formal hypothesis, we have explanation and prediction. So for conceptual framework, guys, we ought to be dependent on the category or it is used to have the balance necessary to create what amounts to a resolution. So with these conflict frameworks, the six types of conceptual framework, it is visible and invisible variables that are functioning under the concepts of relevance. Now, take note that boundaries form, and within these boundaries, we have the tension regarding loss and chaos or freedom that are mitigated. So these frameworks are often functioned like cells with sub-frameworks, stasis, evolution, and revolution. Now, if you want to have a demo for the conceptual framework, I suggest you refer to the first video that we did kagapon. Okay? kay na-discuss ko kada to kagapon ang steps kung paano himuon ang inyong conceptual framework. So the basis of our conceptual framework is your IPO diagram, in which ang most common nga IPO diagram, guys, nga ginobra naton is the input, process, output type. Pero katapusan gin-modify naton siya because gindugangan naton siya research. As you can see, hindi na siya ordinary nga dependent variable type ang conceptual framework, unlike sa descriptive study nga ginaobra ka mga taga-education, kag experimental study or experimentation nga ginaobra ka taga agriculture. So more or less, guys, ang imong tamdan or inyo nga tamdan kay capstone ninyo is IT related. So ang diagram nga tamdan naton is ang ginatawag nga IPO diagram. So sa IPO diagram, we have the input, process, and output. So kung in-modify mo siya, may storage pa sa dalong. So kung IPO ang primitive nga type, IPOS ang modified nga type. Okay? Now let's go to theoretical framework. So for your theoretical framework, guys, this refers to the structure that can hold or support a theory of a research study. So I think ang sa chapter 2 ninyo, like for example, mag-refer, chapter 2 is related, review of related literature. Kung nagbutang ka mo, guys, more or less, study of a person, gagin refer ninyo, gagin butang ninyo dyan. So I think that is considered as theoretical framework. Sa mga descriptive study, kag sa dissertation is ang libro nga ginaobra ka doctoral degree students, no? Ang inyo tanan is capstone. So sa dissertations, gagamit mo sa duha ka bilog gid nga framework, theoretical kag conceptual. So ang theoretical tana is more on the theory that is succeeding nga mga persons nga ginconduct nanda. Okay, to continue with, the concepts often have multiple definitions so that the theoretical framework involves clearly defining what you mean by each of them or each of the term. And then theoretical framework provides a particular perspective, lens, or through which to examine a topic. So there are many different kinds of lenses such as psychological theory, social theory, organizational theory, economic theory, ito ang mga type na dagay sa descriptive na nabilong. Kung hindi man sa descriptive, sa experimental. So which may be used to define concepts and explaining a phenomenon. So kung gusto ninyo nga gamitan sa theoretical framework, then ngita ka mo ka study nga naobra doon, kag ginimuan ninyo. Pero I think aton why na kita nagagamit ka theoretical framework? Ang ginagamit natin is conceptual framework, no? Kay ang naton, sa chapter 2, may ginatawag kita nga prior art. So instead of the theoretical framework, prior art na lang ang ginagamit naton. So there are 4 steps on how to make the conceptual framework, no? Theoretical framework, I think. Hindi ni siya conceptual framework. Conceptual framework yun dapat. Conceptual framework. So, balik kita sa conceptual framework, no? Kung paano ninyo himuon ang conceptual framework ninyo. So, number 1 is choose your topic. What you're going to do is to decide on what will be your research topic. So, I think naobrado naton da sa mga past activity naton na. Kag nag-defend ka mo ka-title ninyo karang midterm. Number 2, do a literature review. So, ang literature review ninyo is ang chapter 2 na. So, ang format ka literature review naton, gintao ko naman kaninyo sa mga past activity. So, review relevant and updated researches on the theme that you decide to work on after scrutiny of the issue at hand. For number 3, isolate the important variables, meaning to say, isolation of the variables are gina-classify nyo sanda kung dependent or independent variable. Pero aton tana gina-IPO naton. So, IPO lang, guys, aton. Kasi IT students kamo. And then generate the conceptual framework. So that's the theory for the theoretical framework. So I suggest, because our next slide will be your activity, no? Okay. Okay, why nabutang di activity ninyo? Pero sige lang, basahan ko lang karon ano ko lang yung inyong activity, no? So, for the theoretical definition naman, instead of the conceptual framework nga ginbalikan naton, it is said that the definition defines a term in an academic discipline, the functioning as a proposal to see the phenomenon in a certain way. And a theoretical definition is a proposed way of thinking about potentially related events. So succeeding events, such as theoretical definition, contain theories. Of course, they are built in, and they cannot be simply reduced to describing a set of observations. So it's not nga kung obserbaran ninyo nga mo kada mo duda, hindi pwede. So it must be tested first before you can conclude that your system is very much implemented sa institution, sa organization, or sa tao nga magamit kay inyong system. And then the definition may contain implicit inductions and deductive consequences that are part of the theory. So may theory ka na nga daan, no? And then a theory definition of a term can change over time based on the methods in the field that created it. Meaning to say, guys, maskin may plano ka doon nga magkanda ka study mo, gintudloan ta doon ikaw ka method kung paano yung dahimuon. Pero take note that research proposal or the capstone is flexible. So meaning to say, you can adapt to changes that may occur before the conduct of the study, during the conduct of the study, and the post-evaluation. So, amuda, I think naga-undergo do kamo ka certain process nga da. Kay ang aton nga subject ng research method is the preparation phase. So, meaning to say, next year, himuon yung continue dun da. So, i-conduct nyo dun. And then, hopefully, we can have a very good research paper. Okay? Now, before we have the code of the day, and basahon ko lang yung code of the day, what diagram can be a basis of the conceptual framework? So, that is our topic for this evening. So, you can actually start answering the code of the day later on at 7 p.m. until 10 p.m. karon borbay. So let me add astra per sapientia, and it means to the stars through knowledge. So thank you guys for attending our class. I-project ko lang guys ang inyong activity para makita ninyo. So for our activity number 12, you're going to refer to concept 112. And our concept 112 is you have to make your conceptual framework based on the variables of your study. So, ibutang nyo anay guys, yung title ka inyong study, no? And then, imuan nyo siya ka IPO diagram. And then you may use any offline, you're going to use the IPO as the basis. So, kung gusto niyo ng modified ng IPO, IPOS. And then, din nyo kada makita ang example sa tong video kagapon nga gin-obra naton karang hapon. So nasa YouTube na siya. I don't know lang kung gin-post ko doon sa inyong I don't know lang kung na-post ko doon sa inyong Facebook group. Pero i-check you out na lang karon para makita, or you can go to Polgar Tech nga sa YouTube channel. Pero i-post ko lang karon borbay para makita ninyo. So lantawan ninyo to guys. Kaya dito ya ang tutorial kagapon. Okay, so that is all for this evening, and I hope that you learned something out of the lecture of what is the conceptual framework and what is the theoretical framework. So aton guys, conceptual framework lang ang activity naton kay because naka-prior art na kita karang nagdigad. So you don't need to answer the theoretical framework. By conducting the theoretical framework, our guide, as I've said, is the IPO diagram. If not, kung hindi nyo gusto, ang gusto nyo mas bago pa, ang IPOS nga diagram. Pero kung IPO is nag-flow siya from your input, going to the process and to the output. Your IPOS is pag-abot sa may output, mabalik siya sa storage, and then you have to identify kung ano ang data nga ginabutang nyo sa storage, and then pabalik sa input. So do amo gidaya ano guys, mas relatable or mas kaangay-angay nga or kaangay gid nga ano nga diagram ang IPOS because 'di ba ang method nga ginagamit ninyo is either waterfall method or SDLC. And you know what, after the ending or the end process or the for the implementation and the maintenance, mabalik ka duman sa planning nga stage. And then ang planning amo daya pinaka-start abi kay inyong SDLC kag waterfall method. So, amo daya, ang waterfall ninyo daw hagdanan na siya. Pero ang SDLC ninyo is cyclical. Kung cyclical nga method nga bagay sa ano ninyo, so dapat IPOS ang gamiton. The tutorial for IPO and the IPOS is there kagapon sa video. You have to check it out so that you can actually pattern your research title and then you can put the theoretical framework. So actually gani kada guys, hindi lang kamo limited lang gani sa diagram no. Pero ako ang demand ko lang kaninyo sa activity ninyo is the diagram na lang. Actually, pwede nyo na ma-describe pag gani ang flow ka diagram. Pero hindi na siguro it's up to you kung butangan nyo pa ka description sa dalom. Ang description nga isa pa da ka paragraph nga malawig. Gina-describe nyo man lang kada kung ano ya flow, meaning to say halin sa input, ano ya sulod na. Then diyan ka mo maagi sa input pakadto sa process. And then ano ya sulod ka process, ano day kag ang output. Pagkatapos sa output, i-describe nyo pa ang storage, kag balik duman ka mo sa input. So that is amo daya ginagamit ka mga kaiba naton nga kadang format sa research naton sa capstone. Hi, di ba, just like any other method nga nagamit ka cyclical definition, meaning cyclical. Di ba, ang mga softwares ninyo may mga version 1, version 2, version 3. White lang nga nag-update ka mo ka mga apps ninyo sa Android apps ninyo. It's because it is the product of research. And ang framework niya, pabalik-balik. Meaning to say, ang update nga na-receive ninyo is ang halin duman sa planning pakadto sa implementation. So cyclical, palibot-libot. Just like your IPOS. So I think that is a very good explanation kung ano gid balaya ginatawag nga framework. Ka-research ninyo, ka-research framework na. So tanan-tanan nga study nag-undergo kung ano nga framework no. Kay ang actually ang ano nyo gani framework man na siya. Ang familiar ka mo sa DFD. DFD is data flow diagram. I think that is a framework also. Pati gani ang flowchart ninyo kung sa programming ninyo ang flowchart bala. Kung program ka mo guys, before ka mo mag-conduct ka program, gagamit ginabutang nyo anay sa flowchart. Kaya flowchart ninyo, amo daya plano ninyo, no? So the same thing sa capstone ninyo as a whole. Ang framework ang ginatawag is ang plano ninyo halin sa input pakadto sa output and pakadto sa storage balik sa input. So gets ninyo yung analogy ko guys when I say version 1, version 2. So meaning to say nagbalik kaliwat sa planning pakadto liwat sa implementation kag sa maintenance. So after kada deployment, ang pag-download ninyo ka-update sa mga Android apps ninyo, implementation na siya mo, implementation phase. Kung gamiton din ninyo, kag may mga bug fixes, maintenance nga ano na siya nga phase. And then balik naman sa planning para ang purpose na kada para ma-improve ang services ka Android application sa inyong phone, sa Android phones ninyo. So the same thing man na kay ang Android app naga-undergo man sa ginatawag nga framework no. And cyclical na siya ang approach. So muna siya hindi lang ano lang one deployment amo lang da doon no. Tapos deployment why ka na labot lagi ang tag-iya or ang institution nga imuan mo ka system. 'Di ba after kada ka abi nyo guys, after ninyo ma-deploy doon ya system kananda matao na tapos doon ya inyo nga role sa capstone ninyo hindi. May ginatawag kita nga sa mga ano gani sa negosyo may ginatawag after sales. So meaning to say after sales, after duda ka pagbakal ka isa ka service or ka product. So ang after sales gandang ginatawag, that is a longer term relationship between your the customer and the client. So ang kamo ya client kamo kaya ano ninyo is ang customer ninyo. So ginaano niyo sanda gina take care ninyo ang needs nanda. Na. So amo day pag na-deploy niyo doon yung system ninyo, so good do ka inyong relationship. Haiti gina provide nyo sa naka-service tapos white langan kada reklamo do sanda or may feedback nga ginatawag, no. I-take ninyo as positive ang feedbacking and ano insa ang feedback is magaling gani sa customer ninyo, that is the one way to improve your service or your system. So hindi nyo sagad ka anong balahaw. Pero medyan nga sometimes nga kataraka man ay white langan blag reklamo. may hindi niyo ma-please bala tanati lain do data na guys. What I mean about ang positive feedback is mambal sabi nga ti amo daya pwede i-suggest ko kay ti amo daya ayadang hindi ko mahimo bala mga limited man ang services. Kay ti gusto ninyo nga system ninyo not necessarily nga perfect gid because there's no such thing as perfect nga system. May mga flaws gida. Why ganit perfect nga tawo kay tawo man lang nag-obra kada. Siyempre medyan gid nga kulang or hindi tanan maremedyohan bala. Hindi tanan nga service or tanan nga pwede i-provide nyo kananda hindi nyo matao tanan-tanan. So expectedly amo day at least lang ang mga major loopholes or major things nga supposedly naka-include sa system ninyo maka-provide ka solution sa problema nanda. So that is our goal. So your goal is not to be perfectly using the system nga ginobra nyo, but actually to make their life more easier. So kung na ano ninyo, na provide niyo ang services ng mga major service na kinahanglan nanda, you can say that your system is workable, functional, or usable na. Amo daw yung mga tsakto nga terminology. Kada Okay, so I think guys, nambal ko duman tanan kung ano yung ginatawag ng framework, kung ano paano ninyo i-obrahon or ano daya. Do you have any questions guys so that we can answer it?
Sir.
Yes?
Good evening, sir.
Yes, good evening.
May question ko, sir. Sa
Yes.
kung bala siya sa conceptual framework, sir, no? Na-mention mo bala, sir, nga hambal mo pagkatapos ka diagram, amo mo ibutang ya paragraph. Pwede, sir, nga unahon may paragraph antes ka diagram?
Pwede man. Pwede man daya. Kahit ng actually amo daya ginabutang ginahimo dapat no. Kay duro abi nga style kapag himo ka conceptual framework.
Either or
oo,
na lang,
pwede.
sir.
Pwede man nga sa una-una kagdagan sa dalom. Pero kay ano man lang daya guys exercise. We don't have the specific format yet. Unahalan ninyo diagram para nga ma-describe nyo eksakto bala. Para hindi ka mo magsala. Ay kung unahon nyo yung description kag yung diagram sa dalom do kasi kwali bala magbasa. Or si kwali kapag ano ninyo unless nga sa ulado mo yung framework nyo. Ay unahon mo ka-describe anay antes ang diagram. For me lang daw si kwali. Daw si kwali bala daw ano. So ay man kita pa final format sa ano ninyo sa proposal or sa capstone. Unahalan ninyo guys anay diagram para ma-describe ninyo at ma-tsakto. Sorry hita na mahapos lang data na nga mag-cut and paste nga ibutang ninyo sa babaw. Kay I know that
you,
the format nga ginhambal ni Roda sa is una ang description gid man tapos ang diagram. Kay sa format ka capstone nato na mo gid man da. Garing lang, I think it's convenient lang. paano mo mabutang ang unless nga kopyahon mo timo sa iban nga thesis or capstone, no? What I mean is, kung ikaw man lang gaobra ka capstone nyo, kaya pa i-describe mo anay diagram mo. So how can you describe it when in fact iway mo pa maobra bala? So do ka si kwali bala nga una ya description tapos sa dalom pa ya mo ya diagram. So nahan yung anay ya diagram and then the description sa dalom. For this activity lang na. So never mind the format. Later on, pwede nyo mandagyapot na mga cut and paste ang format sa babaw ang description. Na.
Okay, sir. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yes, you're welcome. Some more clarification, guys. Take note, ang framework yung ginatawag daw backbone ninyo da. Kung sa ganida, biology bila katawo, amo daya tulaan ninyo sa likod, backbone. So ang backbone nyo, amo daya naga-enable kaninyo para makatindog, makapano, makadlagan. The same thing sa research study ninyo. So framework or conceptual framework in a research study is the backbone of your capstone. Na. So amo daya analogy na. Okay guys, I think that is all for this evening. I hope nga nakapanyapon ko mo doon or napicturean ta doon kamo guys sa nyo. Hindi nyo lang pag-i-open yung camera nyo. Picturean ko lang, print screen ko lang ya nyo, yung nag-attend to do karon nga kay require kami abi sa ka-output namon bala nga gapangalasi gid man kami. So to show the evidence that we're conducting a class maski gabi gani, then the evidence is ang pictorial nga halin sa Google Meet naton. The same thing ang tong sa ninyo sa defense. Paano nga nag-conduct ako ka midterm exam, ang evidence niya amo na to tong pictorial ninyo. So salamat gid guys sa pag-cooperate. Kag mayong gabi gid sa tanan. Please, I will activate the code of the day. You can answer it Borbay. So salamat kag mayong gabi sa tanan. See you on Friday sa ITPE nato nga subject. Yes, Leo Jan.
Sorry sir, tumog sir.
Abi ko may pamangkot, ikaw to.
Ay sir. Bye sir.
Okay, bye-bye.